Country Podcast Edition.
I've always been around great songwriters and artists my whole life. I'm Michael Knox. Welcome to my world.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jason Aldean, and you are listening to my boy Michael Knox on Knox Country
Podcast.
Welcome to the Knox Country Syndicated Radio Show podcast. Welcome to the show. I'm Michael Knox. I got Shalacey Griffin in the house.
Happy to be here.
This week we have Ashley Gorley in the studio. Ashley Gorley is one of the most sought-out songwriters in town, and we're going to talk about everything he's been involved in. You can't drive down Music Row without seeing banners with his name or photo on it. Ashley, I've known you a long time, dude. I mean, I've known you a real long time.
Yes, sir.
We were talking earlier. You came out of the Belmont crew.
I did, yes. Belmont University.
Now, back then when you were doing that, was there like a crew of guys that are now still in the business together and kind of hanging out, or was it more just like a bunch of faces you didn't know and y'all were just kind of bumping into each other later?
Well, we knew of each other, or knew each other, and we still do. Ben Vaughn, of course, published me forever. Rusty Gaston, Jeremy Stover, Melissa Pierce was my first real country co-write. We just kind of messed around down in the piano rooms and tried to come up with a few things. So there's been people that definitely I love still seeing out doing their thing. You know, Ben running the show at Warner and Rusty doing his thing, especially just publishing wise, watching them on the business side really kind of take over has been fun.
So you're at Belmont, you've graduated, you've done your thing. What brought that to being a songwriter in Nashville? I mean, where was that transition?
Well, the transition was from just a huge music fanatic MTV junkie, like a countdown recording teenager. You know what I mean? I was just obsessed with like, gosh, what makes this song so awesome? You know, like how did this even happen? How did it get to my ears? And I would always want to know, like, what's number one? Like, what's top 10? What's happening? Like, why is this song so popular? So I would just kind of start digging into that toward the end of high school, and learning that there were writers of songs that weren't always, it wasn't just the artist who's singing them that wrote them, and that whole thing that nobody really knows until you start digging into it. I was also at the time like DJing R&B hip hop stuff for parties and dances, and loved that entire scene and culture, and like old 90s R&B hip hop. Like, I love that stuff. So I'm a junkie for that. So a very strange kind of path, you know, from that type music, but also knowing there was some country music, and my parents would always have CMAs on every year if that was going on. It wasn't a big musical household. There was nobody standing around the piano singing hymns or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was kind of AM radio in the car was what we got. But I was in my bedroom, headphones on, just listening through everything I could get my hands on. So kind of went from a music lover to knowing that, all right, if I'm going to go to college, I want to be in some type of music industry thing, figuring it would probably be on the business end or maybe on the studio end, but I didn't really have a good grasp on it. Belmont was the only college I applied for and went to, you know. Yeah. Too scared to go to L.A., too far away. I'm from Kentucky, really close, about 3.5 hours from the school, so I didn't know anybody in the state of Tennessee, so I just kind of picked it out and was like, okay, I want to do a music business major, whatever that is. I want to know about business, but these other classes seemed, production, studio, all that seemed cool. So the more I took that stuff, the less scientific I realized I was, the less I kept making tracks and stuff, which is what I started out doing. Yeah. And the more I fell in love with Nashville and its music and the melody and lyric component of the whole thing.
Well, so being the track guy, so what other instruments do you play?
Mostly keyboards and programming was the first thing. It was just that, you know, but now I got a guitar after I moved here. And so anything that's strung like a guitar is okay. Bass I can lay down if I have to, if nobody's watching. So all that stuff I can find my way around on. Mandolin, I used to play live drums for just a hot second in elementary school in a couple of cases, but I couldn't really figure all that out. So mostly piano's the one I love. That's like my true thing I like to write on, or if I do a writer's night or something, then I would play piano.
So were you doing a lot of writing? Like, how did you get that first deal, that first person to kind of come by and go, hey, man, I love what you're doing?
Man, you know, I interned at a lot of publishing companies. Publishing was fascinating to me. When I took that class, I didn't even know what it was till I got in there. And then when they talked about staff songwriting and they referenced some people that weren't amazing musicians and couldn't read music and weren't the best singers in the world, but were making up these songs that were awesome, then at some point the switch flipped and I said, I'm doing that. You know, that's what I want to do. And I chased it, you know, as hard as I could until I made it happen finally. And there were a few guys. There was like a tryout of like songs. It was like the second country song I ever wrote, and it made it into some Vince Gill basketball game. They used to have this benefit at Belmont. Yeah. And one of my friends I thought was a really good singer he's like, I need a song. It was like literally a little microcosm of the way I wish it was this easy right now. But he's like, oh yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm a great singer. I'm like, cool, I write songs. He's like, well, give me one. I need something for the event. They picked me to sing at it. Like, well, here's a couple. And they're like the only two I had. It was a terrible song, but he sang it in front of all these people. And I was like, wow, there's like people clapping. Like, people know, you know what I mean? This was a vehicle for him to do what he wanted to do. And that was really cool for me to be like, okay, I'm kind of part of this, yet I'm still in the stands and nobody knows I am. I don't have to get up on stage.
Yeah.
I don't have to play this even. This is perfect. You know what I mean? So that all in my head kind of locked it in there. That's probably my sophomore, junior year. And a guy named Corey Gearman, who I know you guys know, was the first guy at school to be like, hey, he like either heard that song, he heard like a little 5-song demo I'd done, and just songs I wrote by myself and had other people sing that were recorded at school. And he was like, for some reason, felt like I could turn into something and gave me a shot, kept asking me to write more songs. Hey, let me hear some more stuff. So that was kind of the fuel for me, and he ended up signing me right out of college for way before I should have been signed, for a writing deal, a company called Broad Vision.
What was the first deal you got, first publishing deal you got then?
And I signed with Combustion Music.
Yeah, there you go.
At the end of 2001.
Yeah, that's when I started
like because before nobody knew. We were just like, trying to learn how to swim before that. And,
well, dude, you're like the Kenny Chesney of songwriters. I mean, you outwork everybody.
Yeah, well, yeah, got to outwork people if the talent's not there, So whatever I don't have on the raw talent in, I try to make up for with hustle and grinding.
38 number one.
Yeah,
there's no talent.
But I've always never been scared to work hard, and I really wanted. There's no plan B for me. Once the fire was lit, then I was gonna figure out a way to do it. So
yeah, but you have a different type of domino. Like some people get hot and they'll have 2 or 3 cuts in a year,
right?
Things like that. I mean, your domino, dude, is one of the most impressive ones I've ever seen. I mean, going almost 40 number ones in your career so far, and you're still a damn kid. This is crazy.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun. I'm really humbled by it, especially lately that things keep happening. But I don't really burn out songwriting wise, and I have so many different types of music, different influences and things, and different artists that have allowed me to work with them, and different producers that'll listen to the songs that it hasn't run out yet, So I like to try new things and to adapt. I don't get stuck in when I'm writing songs, I'm always really trying to service the artist, So I never want to be an artist. I was never in a band. I never played out to I want to be the singer, anything like that. So I think that's a little bit of a difference there. I always want to just find the voice they want and supply them with it,
Well, what was your first number one?
The first one, yeah, and I'd been writing for 7 years, which was the first thing somebody told me. My first co-write was with David Lee. Not David Lee Murphy, but David Lee. If you remember him, had some hits here for a while. I think he's in Texas now, but he said, hey, he wanted to give me some wisdom, because I had no idea what was happening in that room. I was just trying to go for it. And he was like, hey, make sure you got patience, man. He said, it takes 7 years from you get a deal to have a hit. It took exactly 7 years for me.
That's great.
So but I always had that in my head, all right, I guess I'm just got to grind for a while.
And which song was that?
It was Don't Forget to Remember Me, Carrie Underwood, which is Perfect Storm. She won Idol. I was a huge fan. We watched Idol we would hang out with friends and watch Idol. Yeah. We were all about. I'm I've got to get a song on this girl. She's killing it.
Yeah, that wasn't a bad first number one.
No. Oh, that was back. Albums still selling and all that kind of stuff. So it was an amazing thing, and that was a very surreal moment for me, especially I think just coupled with her being kind of already a TV, watching the whole career and then being able to interject a song there in the middle of it was a very cool thing for us.
So you got Carrie's number one. And now people are starting to go, hey, I need to write with this guy, because there is a different level being a new writer and a writer with a number one.
True. Yes. And you know what, though? That I think it happens a little more now, but then it's not like all of a sudden a role started. That song probably got recorded in 04, 05, came out in 06. I guess in 05 and came out in 06 as a hit. And then I think it was 08 that I started getting a couple more. It's almost like I earned co-writes a lot of times by getting an outside song with the person first. I was never I didn't go to high school with any of these people. I didn't know them. So even with Carrie, when her next album came around, I had one co-writing appointment. That was kind of all I could get. I was still new. So I was they're all right, we'll give you one day. See if you can luck up again. We wrote All American Girl. There was another number one with Kelly Lovelace and her, thankfully. And then that helps kind of take it off from there. So same thing with Brad Paisley and Luke Bryan, a lot of those guys where, they hear your songs, they like your songs, then they kind of invite you into the rooms there for a minute.
Well, do you find yourself being a better chameleon with a lot of different things, or do you have kind of a crew that you're kind of always approaching these writes with?
No, I'm chameleon. I love to. I have to like almost write in a different room every day and have a different task. If I could be doing 3 at once, I would. You know, like anything to. I thrive kind of on the madness of it. So if I know there's a little bit of pressure or something like that, then I'll do better. If I could leave one right and go do something completely different.
So you're one of them guys where they'll call and go, "Hey man, can we get together from 8 in the morning to 10, and then I got another one at 10:30 to 1."
Yeah, I'm one of those that would say like that was a story on a song called "Dirt on My Boots" that we wrote for John Party. Rhett Akins, who definitely ain't getting up at 7 in the morning usually. I remember him and Jesse Frazier wanted to get together. I can't remember if we kind of did for a minute and we didn't get to write anything. We're like, man, we got to do this combo. It'd be cool. And I was like, well, I was like booked like crazy. I said, well, man, like Thursday I could do it, but we got to start at 8. I got to be somewhere at 11. And then Rhett was like 2. He didn't. I was like, I'm coming. And Jesse said, I'm in. And Rhett was like, crap, if y'all are in, then I'm going to do it too. I don't want to miss it, So we wrote that way. What Makes You Country, a song that's out right now, was a write from 7 to 10:30 in the morning or something like that at Luke's house. So there are some of those early morning things that happen. Now, sometimes I'll need 3 days to go in. It just depends on what it is, If it's a song that shouldn't be overthought, then I like to have a quick window to do it in. And if it's a different kind of song, then I need to hang out for a week with the artist. It just depends on what's happening,
Do you find that being more that element with the artist than another writer, or you got to go back and revisit it a few times?
Yeah, it just depends. Certain songs, it takes me a while. I mean, it's like harder for me to get an idea that I think is worth actually chasing now that we've had enough and I know a lot of the artists and the producers and what they're looking for. The bar keeps kind of getting raised. So a lot of times I'll start 3 and they get thrown in the trash and then we get on one at 3 o'clock. By the end of the day, then we actually start one we like and we have to get back together or whatever. So, but I like to write sometimes with writers. So there's 3 just writers in the room, come up with the best thing you can in the room that day and pitch it, and it have like a magic moment of, oh, we didn't even realize this was perfect for this person. More and more, I'm called into sessions where it's specified like, all right, we're either targeting this or the artist is there, and I'm trying to, input my vibe into the situation.
Well, just to, get some of this information, you started turning a corner, man, where you were really just getting cut after cut after cut, hit after hit after hit. I mean, when that's coming at you, it's got to be a lot to handle. I mean,
yes.
It's exciting, but it's also got to be a lot of pressure too.
Yeah, it's definitely less pressure when nobody's expecting you to really succeed in the room, which is the way it was forever. I mean, that was like a great moment. I always tell, I have writers signed to me, to my company or whatever, and they're in this fun stage. I'm watching it happen where they think they can, they're shooting at the moon trying to hit it. And if they don't, it's like, well, I didn't think we would anyway. It's just like this good amount of pressure they're putting on themselves, but not like, hey, this artist needs a first single and they've got 4 hours on Friday.
Yeah.
Can you do that thing where you write real fast and spit it out? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I do it on cue. This is Ashley Gorley, and you're listening to Knox Country
Podcast.
So there has been pressure like that where I've been in situations where I had to write fast, and then before you know it, then you're expected to just yell out some hit, which I can't always do.
Where do you get your inspiration?
Man, different places. Like I'm in a lot of life phases are happening right now. I got a 14-year-old daughter. I got a boy that just started to drive. I come from, a small town, so all the stuff in these songs we actually went through. There were parties in fields and there are people on tailgates and all the stuff that people sometimes don't really think happened. We lived all that stuff,
Yeah.
So I think growing up that way, but also having a sense of a huge appreciation for R&B and melody and cadence and rhythms and things like that is kind of where the melting pot happens for the stuff that, where I come from. And or as far as coming from an artistic place, but different things. I would say books, but I can't read but about 3 pages in a row before the words get blurry and I can't tune in. But movies, shows, conversations. I mean, I hear a lot of stuff in conversations, and I'm fortunate to have a lot of close friends, so we talk about stuff, real stuff, and topics come up from there. A lot of times it's very inspired by music now too. Somebody will have a vibe or a thing, and we just keep on grinding until we find out what that sounds like it should be saying. I'm a big believer in that.
What's your 90s R&B go-to song?
Oh, anything like Babyface wrote or Boyz II Men or Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Teddy Riley, New Jack Swing.
Whip Appeal. Come on.
Yeah, there you go. Any of that. I went to his show. He was here like last week or two.
Really?
I hung out with him. Yeah. He's amazing. All that stuff is like that's mind blowing. That's super musical. Like, it's so hard to follow that stuff.
Well, you've had these 3 segments. Let's say in your career, you had the beginning, and then you had where you're in this groove, and now you're the veteran. You know, do you find your personality fitting in one of those better than the other one, or do you like being a little bit of an underdog, or do you like being the veteran?
I like being the veteran that still plays the whole game. You know what I mean? Like the guy that's not like hobbling around, but also is still making an impact. So I'm not in a place where it's like, oh, I don't feel like writing. I just want to sit back and take, like a label job. Not that that would be bad or anything like that, because that stuff's come up before. Because I like A&Ring, I like artist development, I like all that. But I'm definitely down to have a few days occasionally where I'm not just writing a song. Where I'm helping an artist find their voice, or we're signing and developing new talent and trying to match it up and get it signed at label. So I like doing a little bit of all of it. I'm at my best when the schedule looks like that. Meeting with an artist manager I'm supposed to work with to cultivate something with, and then a quick, meeting with a president of a label where we're talking about maybe signing an act, and then we go over here and do this, and then we're listening to one of my guys' songs, and then I've got to write for 5 hours. Like all that at the same time is good. I do like the place where I'm at now, because there is a little bit less, like there's people, if I'm writing with some of these artists that I'm now friends with, if we don't get it, we don't get it. I don't feel like that's the last time I'm going to see that person. Yeah. I also am in a good place, having had the success, if there's somebody like Sam Hunt, Eric Church, artists that I really respect, I don't think, oh my God, my first thought is not, how can I get, I know these people, how am I not on these records, how am I not in the rooms with them? It's more like, hey, they don't need me, stuff sounds amazing, like I appreciate what they're doing, and I'm just going to congratulate them and go on, which is a more comfortable place to be in. So I'm not mad at the place I'm at right now.
You don't have to prove yourself.
Right. Yeah, like where you're getting these asks, and it can be pressure, like you said a while back, and sometimes that does get to me, like the stress of like trying to come up with something new after writing 2,000 songs or whatever it is. That can be a thing. Well,
and it's awesome to be able to pick what you do now. Yeah. When before, sometimes you're thrown in there and you're like, man, I don't even want to be here. Right. But I got to perform and do my part. Yeah. Because I've done that in production where you're producing a record and you're like, man, I wish I wouldn't have taken this one on. Right. I'm just not feeling it. But you still got to finish it. But that goes back to your ADD way of songwriting. Absolutely. Yes. You got to have other things. It's like having the ceiling fan on. You got to have that going on in order to relax. Right. Yeah. And do something else. Yeah, and even if I'm relaxing, it's an active thing I'm doing. I don't want to like chill out. It's like we're either playing pickup basketball, or we're playing cards, or we're taking some crazy trip adventure where we're trying to make sure everything happens in this 3-hour time span. I love any kind of challenge like that. It's how I relax. But it's a sweet spot right now, and it has been, for a few years. I will say at the beginning, it's fun to just be figuring out what's going on, a little bit more than it being expected like it is sometimes now. But that's a really fun spot too, is like kind of beating the odds. Whereas now you go in there, it's like, hey, what amazing thing did you get? I'm like, actually, we completely struck out, Yeah. And that still happens. And that happens more now than it used to.
Really? Yeah. Actually, I have a question here. Yeah, do you still write stinkers?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I just don't finish them anymore. I always say like the scale of songwriting is like, well, at first you write the whole song, you think it's amazing, and 3 months later you figure out this sucks. Yeah. And then as you get better, as soon as you get the demo the next day, you realize, why did I write this? Mm-hmm. And then as time goes by, you don't even put the song on the demo session, or you don't even demo the song. And then eventually you get to where we are now, where like we can see down the road, or I can see down the road, like this idea is not going to go anywhere. Let's try something else. So it's just like you start other songs quicker. That's good. The more time that goes by. So yeah, but we've done a lot of things where we'll write a song for 3 or 4 hours. I have no problem deleting the whole session and starting over, because I'm not going to play, if I'm not comfortable playing it to to Michael Knox or whoever's producing, or the artist themselves texting it and be like, I think you should record this, then a lot of those don't get turned in anymore.
Well, I know people like him appreciate that.
Oh, well, I mean, even I do. Even my guys know, my writers would know, like, hey, turn everything in, but when you have something amazing, text me. You know that. We try to create that gauge, that, where you kind of know where that bar is. Yeah. Well, and also, a great song to you now is different than it was a while back. Mm-hmm. Your gut feeling is telling you that. It's like, hey, man, I need to finish this, or I don't need to finish this. Right. Yeah, that happens a little more now. So are you wanting to get into production more? Yeah, I produce some stuff. A little bit production is so which you would surely attest to, it takes a long time. I have found out I will co-produce things if I'm capturing some kind of sound that I think would influence the record, and that's fun. I like to be in the studio, but the sweet spot for me is get the template and know that it's not a record, but know that you or whoever is going to take it to that place and make it sound amazing, because that work takes longer than writing the song.
Yeah.
And so I like to go on to the next thing. So I like to be in. I don't like write the song and just give it up like, oh, this can sound however. We usually provide a pretty good roadmap. That part's really fun to me, but I like that it has a hard end to it. Like, hey, we got to demo this. This session's over at 1:00. It would be hard for me to ever be satisfied by a final. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
When it's a record, I would just be like, oh, maybe we should get that again. What if we tried this? What if we tried that? I'd drive myself crazy. So I like producing demos. Now, if I went in with an artist, like I've co-produced some stuff lately on a couple of new artists because I think the sound is super fresh, and I think I have to, there's some stuff that I need to bring to the table. That's really fun. But just to produce somebody that already has a sound doesn't interest me. Well,
now in today's world too, because you came up as a track guy, kind of turned into a songwriter. Now you're back doing some tracks again, and now you're going out and doing some DJing.
Well, that's been full. Yeah, the track stuff I've put away. I couldn't make a track in front of you for $1 million. I don't have the new stuff. I don't know how to do that now. I used to do it on different stuff, different software. But I do always have opinions. I probably drive the producers and track guys crazy because I know what's happening. I have opinions on how that music sounds, and I did get the chance to come full circle and DJ old school 90s R&B hip hop. Just this past fall, which was amazing for like a little
Jesse
8 week
Frazier,
run.
right?
Yeah, me and Jesse, we kind of got to open for Thomas Rhett, and we went on right before he went on, and he was selling out all the arenas. It was amazing.
It's a nice slot.
Oh, it was super fun. Yeah, and that set we did was like a throwback set, so it's not going to fail. Everybody's already there to have a good time, and they can't. What can they do?
Yeah, and
can't boo us off.
Talking to Rhett, wasn't like Thomas Rhett sort of raised on?
Oh yeah. No, it was all this. It was the perfect combination. Plus, the reason we did that is we were out there also writing this new album that's coming out. A lot of that. Thomas is one of those guys that I've connected with, and we've become tight, as friends also. But musically, we write very similar with each other. So we probably wrote 30, 40 songs, like more than I normally would with an artist for a project. But it was something I was so interested in him evolving and watching him kind of from the beginning that I really felt invested in that. That's really fun. I love doing that. Just with a handful of people, just maybe 2 or 3 people ever to go in that deep with. But he was one of those that it was really fulfilling this past year to be able to do that.
Knox Country Podcast Edition.
Some of you know me as a record producer for acts like Jason Aldean and Thomas Rhett. Others know me as the son of rock and roll legend Buddy Knox, Party Doll fame back in 1957. I'm Michael Knox. Welcome to my world. You're listening to Knox Country
Podcast.
Hey, this is Keith Urban.
What's up, y'all? It's your boys here, Florida Georgia Line.
Hey, this is Little Big Town.
And you're listening to Knox Country.
You've entered Knox Country.
Welcome back to the Knox Country Podcast. Well, looking over your list of a lot of the songs, I just pulled out a couple of them that I personally really like. Ooh. Do I Make You Wanna? The Billy Currington thing.
Yeah.
I play that on the show all the time.
Awesome.
And I never knew you wrote it. I hate to tell you.
No,
I'm not a big look at writers guy. I just play songs. But that one, how do things like that come about? Because those things are some of the highest recurrent songs you'll find.
That one. I had the single after that, and it went to about number 60 because they wouldn't stop playing that one, which is, I was like, wow. And it died immediately.
It's like, thanks.
I was like, yeah, but hoping for both. But Billy's one of those artists that records, his voice is so great on stuff. So when we wrote that, I got to write that with Jerry Flowers and Matt Jenkins and Zach Crowell, and they were all part of the Tape Room family, our company. So we were all hanging out. They had kind of started a groove and done some stuff, the 3 of them, and invited me in to just kind of check out what they were doing, see what it could turn into. So that one was really special because that was a time where we were just trying to write something we thought was awesome and catchy, Didn't have anybody in mind while we were doing it, but just kind of got that demo done.
That's a smooth track, too.
Yeah, it's just like it had a little different vibe, and Zach and Jerry did great on that. Jerry plays everything. He's Keith Urban's band leader and everything, so super musical, and it just felt really good. So that's one of those things that renews hope in just songwriting in general, to be like, are we wasting our time today? We don't have any artists here. We don't have a target. We're just writing. That's one of those we can look back on and be like, man, that was just our crew. There's no politics there. We sent it. the label loved it. Billy said yeah, and they ended up putting it out. So that's we need those every now and then. I think those are so important when those come through. It makes up for the 500 that didn't, that hit the wall.
Well, it's funny, Al Dean is real good friends with Dallas Davidson.
Yeah.
And Dallas has probably played us 1 million songs, literally like 1 million songs.
He ain't afraid.
And his first cut was Tonight Looks Good on You with you.
That's right.
And it
was just leaving out part of the equation, man.
That's it. There he go. He knows now.
And that's probably one of mine and Jason's, one of our favorite songs.
Yes.
And it's a big recurrent one, too.
Man, that was the day. I mean, writing that song, we had a whole song going, and I was just like, I always like to leave the room, come back in, and then we kind of say, this is a terrible waste of time, or let's stay on it. So that was like after writing 3/4 of the way finished songs, we landed on that, and then it just kind of took shape, and like this, we think this is special. So that was an example of one of those type days. Again, we weren't sure who it was for till it was over, and then we were like, oh my gosh, Jason would sound amazing on this.
Dallas is like, yes.
Yeah. And that's fun too, because that was a time where I mean, really, if we were thinking about Jason, we would try to write an up tempo, certain, like a rocky kind of thing, and then it was fun to just kind of take the bullseye off for a minute and just see what came out of that hook and that title. So yeah, that's a great record there.
And another one that I really like, Luke Bryan has two different sides. He's got kind of a quirky side, and then he's got this Play It Again side, which is, I think, one of your co-writes too. Mm-hmm. And man, that's what brings me into Luke's career, when he does those kind of songs. And I was looking at the list, and yours are a lot of those kind of things.
Yeah, we've got that hit now that's out, but there was a magic run of like the Crash My Party through a song called Kick the Dust Up, where we had a lot of those songs, and a couple of them written with Luke, but for the most part, they were just pitches, and nobody even knew. Like, he didn't even know I wrote some of those when I was with him, like you are. He's literally listening to, for the song's sake most of the time. And he it just happened to be whatever I was doing was whatever he wanted to do there for a couple of years, which I'm very thankful for.
Well, the What Makes You Country is awesome too.
It's a different thing. Yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah. So yeah, that era there of the Play It Again stuff, we were really excited. And I wrote that with Dallas, speaking of him, just me and Dallas.
Co-writer. What is that? Yeah, is a co-writer a thing? Is that?
Oh yeah.
Does that mean two, or does?
I know those don't happen very much anymore. Just me and him with real live instruments.
Who didn't show up?
That's right. No, there was nothing. We've had a few of those, but that one was especially because we just really set out. I tell my writers this too. I said our goal that day was to write somebody's favorite song, and he said, "Don't stop messing around on the keyboard till we just have something that we think somebody would sing along to." And that's really, we didn't have a hook or anything. We had a hook. Well, we had one, but it was called "This Is Our Song, This Is My Song" or something like that, which turned into Play Again by the end of it. But that one we're really thankful for. I mean, seeing him do that live and all that energy from that album especially was just really fuel to me. That was just a perfect marriage there during that era of his career.
Well, that was a lot of cuts on him.
Oh yeah, which are not easy to get. Yeah, those just that was be hard to top that.
Well, a guy who don't get a lot of credit is Randy Houser.
Yeah,
that running
Great
out of
singer.
Out of Moonlight. I mean, when he sings it, I mean, who sang the demo? I mean, who did that?
Dallas did. Dallas sang that demo.
I mean, because Randy goes for it, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's more of a template. He kind of owned it. It's not like somebody's trying to represent Randy. And again, that was another one. It's cool that you're bringing these up. It makes me want to do more normal writing sessions. But that was just a hook and a write. Yeah. And Thomas Rhett had that. Luke had that. A lot of guys wanted. It's like everybody knew that was a hit, and they're just trying to figure out who it was best for. I think Randy called saying he wanted to cut it the next day, like Monday, and we let him have it when somebody else had it on hold. Not that you should do that very often. But it was one of those things where when the artist is that fired up, and it was like, oh my gosh, that would sound perfect, and so that was one of those songs that was hot for a minute. We knew from when we demoed it that it had a nice little amount of catchiness to it.
Well, let's get to these things that are called Triple Play Awards.
Good Lord.
Oh, okay.
Now, how many Triple Play Awards have you won? Do you know?
I don't know.
I have counted. Hold on, 12.
That sounds right. We just had Triple Play Awards.
Yeah, you won one. So I think it's 13. Or is that the 12th one he just won a few weeks ago?
I don't think 13.
I think that's the 12th. But also in 2016, you became the first songwriter to win 3 Triple Play Awards in 1 year.
Right. Yes.
I mean, that's insane.
So what does that make you feel like when you're going there
and
you're there with? And you're going there and you're like, yeah, man, I've won. This is my second time. And you're like, yeah, I'm here 12.
Right. No, that's not taken for granted at all. It's weird when they gave me that last time and announced me last and gave some of those stats. I don't keep up with that stuff. So I was like, well, okay, that's cool. But those times, like I tell people all the time, it sounds like you're just trying to be humble or something, but the truth is those songs just come out when they come out. They exist. Right. So sometimes they switch a single to something you didn't write. Sometimes a song peaks at number 2 and loses number 1 by a couple of plays. It's not less influential on the, in the scheme of music. So some of that stuff I take a little bit of a grain of salt, like, well, cool, that went. Probably had this other better song that didn't go, but this one happened to be, catch fire, be behind the right song at the right time kind of. So I'm very aware of some of the mechanisms that make all that stuff happen.
But the Triple Play Awards is having 3 singles in one
12-month
period, 3 number ones in a 12-month period, and you've had that multiple times in 1 year. Right. So what's the most number ones you've had in a 12-month period?
I got 9 those 2 years in a row.
I mean, that's crazy, dude. 18 singles in 24 months. I mean, that's nuts.
Number ones.
Sorry. See,
no.
See, but I mean,
crazy.
That throws you back to like Kim Williams of the 90s, where they were having these 12 singles in a year or something.
It's a matter of writing too much, which I do, and then just writing so many different things. Like I do love working, like we talked about earlier, on different things and being all over the map. As different as we could get.
But that's special.
And if you can't, and so that's how that happens. Some people are writing maybe they're getting one song here, it's the biggest song ever, and that's just how they like to operate in that way and write less and write when they're inspired. And I like the game of it and the competition of it. I relate it, more that way. It makes it more fun for me, to do that. So I like to work with a bunch of different artists, not just to get, I want to get songs on everybody, but I actually like going in and checking out everybody's different process, everybody's different voice, and being like, oh, this person should sing this type of melody, or this idea is better for this person. So those were a couple of magical years where I think maybe half or a little less than half of those were written with the artist, and the other ones were pitches, which is really cool. So I was on the grind there for a minute.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Shalacy. Check us out on the web at knoxcountry360.com or on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at knoxcountry360. Now, is there an artist out there that you haven't gotten a single on or haven't been able to write with that you just, I want to get a number 1 with this person?
Or just a cut.
Or just a cut.
Yeah, I know. That sounds bad. Not really. I mean, it would be great to. I had a George Strait cut one time that I wanted to be on the radio because it was awesome. Called "If the Whole World Was a Honky Tonk." That I thought was really cool. There's been some times where I've gotten cuts or gotten songs by some of those artists that'd be cool to have seen those come to light. I had a song Alan Jackson almost cut one time. I never got to see that happen. Garth Brooks, which I haven't. I've gotten close on some of that stuff. Those are like those bucket list people. But right now, like I said before, like people like I know Chris Stapleton. He doesn't need to, he's not wanting for anything. And so I would rather just like say, congrats, dude. And that's it, and leave that alone. So it doesn't keep me up at night if I don't. I'm not chasing, but I'm down.
Yeah.
And sometimes stuff will come along and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I know what their next album some stuff they should tackle on the next thing. And then I will try to get in those scenarios. But most artists I'm very fortunate to get to work with. And then sometimes it's like people come out of nowhere, if it's like Luke Combs writing songs with his buddies. So I didn't know Luke. He already had a following. I didn't know that. So I don't expect him to just be like, hey, come here and write this next album with me. Well, I will, though, if he's listening. But
Luke.
But he's so nice and so humble and funny. And I played a couple of shows with him or whatever. And he would be great, some of those kind of guys. But I've been very fortunate. Even people like watching Carrie Underwood like win this show and be like, I want to work with her. And then writing a whole bunch of songs with her and for her.
Well, it sounds like you just appreciate and have respect for the craft and just good songs.
I go through spurts where it's like when I'm focused on the right stuff, I'm like, hey, everything's all good. I don't have to be on everything. And then I have days where I'm calling my guys like, how am I not writing with all these 500 people right now, tomorrow? What's happening?
And your guy's like, really, dude? Come on.
It takes a little bit of both. So I do try to. I do want to conquer the world, but then when I step back, then I'm very appreciative of like I'm, if they say, hey, oh man, you've never written with Miranda Lambert. I'm like, yeah, and I don't know if I'd chase that or not. I don't know if I'm the guy that she has to have on the, now, hey, if she calls me in and wants to do a certain thing, let's do that, but thankfully it's a lot better and I think less stressful to appreciate things and not have to be a part of everything.
I think you're doing okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I know you say you're a guy that does all these different kinds of writes, all these kind of things. Do you like writing on the road? I mean, do you like getting on the tour bus writing?
Yes. I like any kind of confined. First of all, it's like nobody's going anywhere, which I love, being trapped with artists and producers and stuff like that, where nobody has to bail it to, or me, where I don't have to go do something. So there's something about seeing the show and then writing that's feels really right to me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh shoot, it kind of takes it up a notch, and the obligation of like, hey, all these people pay a lot of money to come here. Let's not settle on this line or this melody or whatever. It kind of clicks in my head that way, and seeing the shows helped me a lot. I don't go out on the road a ton because of family stuff and because of coaching basketball and everything like that. And I don't want to be gone. I actually like being at my house and hanging out and playing with kids and all that stuff. That's like my favorite thing to do. So.
So do a road thing. You got to really have a connection.
I really have a connection. Now that said, if I can take some time off, I mean, my perfect writing scenario would be I write 3 days a week, 24 hours a day, and never leave the studio. You know what I mean? Like never even go home and even think or accept a call, because I can really get immersed in it, and I feel like I do really well. We get a lot of songs if we go out on the road, because I'm not thinking I can't go to this meeting, or no, I can't do this. So I'm like taken from that situation, so I get to fully immerse myself in the creativity of it, which I think is really fun to do. We did that with Thomas Rhett, and we've done it Dan and Shay and FGL and people like that on the road that are fun to watch the show and hang and do all that stuff. So I do that. I probably do 5 or 6 runs like that a year. Sometimes it's been more. It just depends on the people if I want to hang with them, and I love doing that, but also hate being gone, so I try to kind of balance that.
So the writer camp thing, that doesn't do much for you?
It just depends on what it is. They can be amazing, or they can be like, why are we doing this? It just depends on how random it is and how fruitful it can be.
You should be here. Cole Swindell. Yeah, I love that song. What's the story with I know the story behind it.
Yeah, that was another, that was kind of a godsend. I was out there, we were in Boston, or Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, and Luke was playing a huge stadium show. Luke Bryan, and Cole was just starting to work on his second album. And I went out because he's a great writer, first of all. He's a writer first, so he knows what's going on. He's not hanging out. He has 100 ideas ready to go. So we had written a couple things, just like good up-tempo hit feeling things. But I remember that night, my daughter, who's a big country fan, loves concerts. I had taken some kind of picture or something like that. And knowing that she would love it, I just typed, "You should be here," and sent it to her. And then, as we all do, songwriters, I was like, oh, hang on, that's pretty good. That could be a title for something totally different, though. So I got back to the bus after the show, after Cole went on, and I was like, hey, I think I got an idea. Told him that idea. And then that really did happen really fast. Maybe an hour or so, that song was done, because it was so close to him, what he wanted it to be about and everything like that. So that was a lot his story, and me just kind of helping, turn that hook and everything. So that's a special one, because I've even literally been to a funeral where they've played that song. Nobody knows I'm writing it, but it's just like, okay, if I can write songs that mark people's events like that and memories, then that's a special thing. So and that's a thought you think. It doesn't have to be somebody that's passed away. It could just be like, man, I'm in this scenario. My dad or brother or wife or friend would love to be here. So that I thought that thought was unique, and I was really excited that they were able to have that kind of success with a ballad out of the gate like that.
Oh yeah,
Ashley, thank you for being here, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Whenever we talk about writers that you want to be like, or who's the guy on their game, your name's always mentioned first.
Oh, awesome.
I mean, it's the pinnacle. Things that people talk about. I want that career. So it's awesome you be here, dude. I've known you a long time, and I got to see that transition, and you surpassed so many people, that it's crazy in the short time you've been here. So real proud I get to know you, dude. Real proud I get to cut your songs.
Yes,
and I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, you had a hand in that for sure. Appreciate it.
Knox Country.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Knox Country Podcast. Special thanks go out to co-host Miss Lacey Griffin and producer Donnie Walker. See you next time.
You've entered Knox Country Outtakes.
I don't know if one show's going to cover everything that he's done.
Well, we're not going to cover everything he's done because we don't have enough time.
Yeah, no, I would love to do that. Do this again because there's like a ton of. We didn't talk about Bon Jovi. We didn't talk about.
Yeah.
I know.
There's been some like wow. That is a whole thing. There have been strange occurrences that I'm like, it's so funny. That's
really. See, we're gonna do a part 2.
Yeah, okay,
we're gonna do a part 2.
Hey, this is Ashley Gorley. I just want to thank Michael Knox in advance for recording. I forgot if it was 2 or 3 of my songs for the new Jason Aldean album. He hasn't done it yet, but I'm assuming he will now that I've done this interview.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Cool.
His bio is insane. It's like a novel. There's so much going on here.
Please don't read it.
Fuck me up. Part 2.
Knox Country
Podcast edition.